I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Peters Township Planning Commission to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Mills is not here. Mr. Cartophilis?
Here.
Mr. Magrino?
Here.
Mr. Wiley?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Salepis is not here, and Ms. Corbel is not here.
We have the minutes in our binders. Could I have any comments, questions, concerns, or changes to those minutes? Otherwise, a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion and second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So approved. Reports and correspondence. We have something under St. Clair Hospital.
St. Clair Hospital has filed an appeal through the Washington County Court of Common Pleas to the Planning Commission's approval of the Huntington Bank site plan. They have subsequently filed here recently a motion to open up the record to allow for additional evidence, and have already combined the site plan appeal with the previous zoning hearing board appeal for their violation, so they're lumping it all into one case. They've presented it before a judge now for a motion to reopen the record to allow for additional evidence. That decision will be made sometime here in the near future. The township's response on that motion is due by Monday, I believe, and our solicitor is working on that. We'll just keep you in the loop as this proceeds along.
Okay. Thanks, Seth. Do we have any site plans or subdivisions filed for review tonight?
No.
And I'm assuming the agenda is approved. That is, no changes?
No changes.
At this time, I'd like to welcome any audience comments not pertaining to any new business we have tonight. Hearing none, and we have no old business, we'd like to move on to new business, and we'll start with the Planning Commission. It's a recommendation from the Macrino subdivision modification on 151 Beabout Road.
Tonight, we're reviewing a request for a modification. So this is part of a proposed subdivision plan that would ultimately come back to Planning Commission at a later date. Tonight, we're just looking at the requested modification. John and Suzanne Macrinos, owner of 151 Beabout Road, along with a family member, are requesting a modification to allow for a new lot to be created along Beabout Road. Beabout Road is a collector road, and Section 385-36B of the Township Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance precludes newly created lots along a collector road, so that would be a modification from council would be required for the subdivision plan to proceed. The plan includes the utilization of an existing driveway that goes out to Beabout Road that currently services both 151 and I believe 171 Beabout Road. It's just a singular means of ingress and egress. This proposed modification and subdivision plan would include a cross-access easement for ingress and egress that would service the newly created Lot 1, so it could continue and you could utilize that existing shared driveway. With that in mind, that's kind of one of the things that staff looks at as part of modifications on collectors is driveway access, and maintaining an existing driveway we think is an ideal scenario for creating a new lot in this location. So staff recommends approval for the modification request to create a new lot along the collector street at 151 Beabout Road for John and Susan Macrinos, subject to the 3 conditions outlined in my staff report dated December 1, 2022. I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission has. We also have members of the Macrinos family here tonight as well.
Yeah, I'll start by saying, did you poke any holes into this? Is there any cons to this?
I don't foresee any issues. We've had these 2 lots back here for a good period of time utilizing this shared driveway. It's all family members currently. There's never been any issues there. I understand that they already have or are working on a maintenance agreement for that driveway, so that's one of the things we usually would be concerned about with shared driveways, but that seems to be taken care of. It's not a site distance issue there. I don't foresee any real issues with creating this additional lot for one new house to utilize this shared driveway.
Mm-hmm.
Should one or both of the properties be sold to outside of the family?
Sure.
Is there any right away or any conditions that would create problems down the road?
I believe the driveway from the last subdivision has an easement across it for both of those properties, but we can make sure that gets carried through with the future subdivision for this lot. We can also entertain a condition of requiring a maintenance agreement in perpetuity for all future property owners as well.
Okay.
Aaron, do you see any issues with this?
No, that would be my concern, is the perpetuity of the maintenance agreement, because, yeah, right now, they're, family, but you never know what happens.
So the houses there now are family?
Correct.
That's correct.
We would assume that that would be the permanent point of ingress and egress, such that no other driveways would be along or permitted along Beep Out Road in perpetuity.
Yeah, I mean, the condition I would place as part of this modification says that that new Lot 1 shall not have direct driveway access to Beebout Road. It wouldn't
I see.
affect either of those two existing lots, but it would be for this new lot.
And
Hearing no more questions, does anybody from the audience have anything to question this or comment?
hearing none, I'll make a motion that the modification request to create a new lot on Bebop, at 151 Bebop Road for John and Susan Macrinos be approved, subject to the, I guess now, 4 conditions.
With the fourth being, including a maintenance agreement, be prepared and
In
maintained in
perpetuity.
perpetuity with all property
Correct.
owners for all 3 lots.
Correct.
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Second item, Planning Commission, a recommendation again for the Taylor Gleeks subdivision on 277 Thomas Road.
Mr. Ted Taylor, who's here tonight, along with Darren and Lisa Glikes, owners of a 4.01 acre lot at 277 Thomas Road, are requesting township approval of the Taylor Glikes subdivision. The Glikes are purchasing a 1.6 acre portion of Ted Taylor's property that he owns to the right of it there. That's an 8.29 acre property. It's the future land for Phase 2 of Lutz Farm. The Glikes are combining that 1.67 acres into their existing property and creating a 5.69 acre lot. The remaining parcel, residual parcel R, which will end up being 6.62 acres, is the remaining land for Phase 2 of Lutz Farm. So it's a simple consolidation of that 1.67 acres and combining it with 277 Thomas Road. Staff's recommending approval subject to the 4 conditions.
Given my involvement with PVE, I'll be recusing myself from this discussion.
This lot doesn't touch, it was separate and apart from the cul-de-sac that's proposed
Correct.
for the rest.
It was an estate lot that Ted was going to...
And it was going to driveway directly onto
Correct.
Thomas Road.
Correct.
And
So
they're just-
that'll eliminate that.
I mean, this is just a buffer, essentially, is what they're doing, is buffering from
Correct.
the subdivision.
They want a little bit of space between them and the new development.
Did they buy enough white picket fence to put around this lot as well?
I imagine they'll be moving that.
Might be where everyone else has supply chain issues.
I drive by it every day.
Removal of the septic tank area easements because it's sewer.
Well, it says proposed. It shouldn't say proposed because there is an existing septic system there, and that's going to stay there for now. I just want the proposed off of that. It's there.
Strike proposed.
Remove.
Strike proposed.
Anybody up here have a question? Anybody in the audience have a question? Hearing no comments, can I hear an action motion?
I'll make a motion that this planning recommendation for the Taylor Gleick subdivision be approved
I'll second.
according to the 4 conditions.
Made and seconded. All those in aye, say aye. In favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstain.
4 yeas, 1 abstention. That motion passes. Item C, Planning Commission recommendation, Tuscany Lot 13, it's a subdivision. For 509 and 509A on Villa Drive.
339 Just About Land Company, the proposed developer for the Tuscany 2 development, is proposing a subdivision plan that would shift the lot line between 509, 509A Villa Drive, and the parcel on the northern side of Just About Road that was proposed as part of the Tuscany 2 preliminary plan that Planning Commission saw here recently. This overall subdivision plan does affect that preliminary plan, so that's going to be the next item on our agenda tonight. This is just a lot line shift amongst those 3 lots. What has happened here is a home was built in the Tuscany 1 development over the property line. These were 2 very large acre parcels of land. The home just got situated in the wrong location. We're coming in and fixing that at this point, shifting the lot lines, making everything compliant with the township zoning ordinance requirements. But as part of that, about 0.5 acres of what was open space in the Tuscany 2 preliminary plan is going to be consolidated with 509 Villa Drive, or Lot 13-2R, the yellow lot shown on the screen. This plan creates multiple lots that are all consistent with the township zoning ordinance. What it also does is it separates the lot that was part of the Tuscany 2 preliminary plan on the southern side of Just About Road into its own standalone parcel that will potentially be developed in the future. We have placed a condition that a no building clause be placed on that lot until planning module approval is acquired, that no development can take place on that lot. Again, just shifting lot lines here, affecting the preliminary plan for Tuscany 2, which will be the next item on our agenda. Staff recommends that the Tuscany plan of lots, Lot 13 subdivision plan be approved, subject to the 3 conditions as identified in my November 30 report.
That's a nice, simple one. Does anybody have any questions for staff?
I was just a little confused by this. So you're saying where that red line was, it would have went straight through the bulge in the yellow lot is what's being...
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll try to, this graphic with the house on it kind of helps clarify what's going on here. Right here is where the existing lot line is. And you can see the house was constructed over said lot line into the adjacent property. This is currently owned by Benjamin Marcus Homes, who is also the proposed developer here. So there's some shared ownership, so they're able to give some of this open space parcel to make up the difference.
Yeah.
So there's houses on both lots already. They're constructed. and
509 Villa Drive has been occupied for some time. 509A is currently under construction, which is the lot where the house is built over the property.
Okay.
You just put in the wrong place.
It's put in the wrong place. That's a brief synopsis of the whole situation.
That's a simple
The elephant in the room.
It's the best.
Just
Put it in the wrong spot.
Sure.
When it fell out of the sky.
That's right.
Anybody else do nothing? No. Anyone from the audience for comments? Hearing none.
I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission recommendation, Tuscany Lot 13 subdivision 509 and 509A Villa Drive be approved as detailed in the planning staff memo, subject to the 3 qualifications listed there.
Second. We have a motion and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries unanimously. Item D, Planning Commission recommendation, Tuscany 2 revised preliminary plan, Just About Road and Drive.
As I mentioned, that previous subdivision plan affected the Tuscany 2 preliminary plan, which Planning Commission saw at their October 27, 2022 regular meeting, in which you provided a recommendation of approval subject to 18 total conditions at that time. Now, what we have here with the proposed revised preliminary plan is a reflection of that half acre's worth of open space lost amongst the development. There's also a small shift in the overall lot width of lots 113 and 114. I believe 10, 12, 13 feet apiece. Not a tremendous change that really affects the buildability of either of those lots. Outside of those 3 changes, no other changes to the revised preliminary plan. As I mentioned, the lot that would have been, the portion of development across the south side of Just About Road will be split per the previous subdivision plan, but that was never part of, the initial preliminary plan for Tuscany 2. Staff is making a recommendation of approval for the Tuscany 2 revised preliminary plan, subject to the same 18 conditions that were in my original report back at the October 27 meeting. Just a new date on my report, but the same 18 conditions.
Okay, thanks, Seth. I don't seem to have that page.
Which page?
Any questions or comments from the committee?
What size are these lots?
They vary. Ted, I think we're down to a third of an acre all the way to up to some lots that are in excess of an acre. These large lots around this cul-de-sac. Generally speaking, I think maybe a third to 0.4, 0.5 acres, somewhere in that range is where we average.
These conditions, say again, they were the same we had before?
Identical. No changes. This preliminary plan kind of got put on hold while we figured out this whole lot line shift and moving the open space, so really wasn't much change on it from now until today. So the same 18 conditions.
Okay, thank you.
And does all the open space meet the criteria within our ordinance in
It
terms
does,
of?
yep, and it exceeds it. We're at
I understand the
25%.
volume, the amount exceeds, just to make sure the quality is.
Yes, it does. All the lots touch open space. I think we have good selections of open space, good buffers, even though they're not technically required, but they're surrounding the development. I think it's a quality selection of the open space.
When you say quality, do you mean it's not garbage?
Right, it's not a ribbon of
Clarify for the
unusable,
audience.
it's not a ribbon of unusable space around the development.
And that's a temporary cul-de-sac up at the top?
Yes, temporary, if the adjacent property were to ever develop.
Basically, the property is vacant right now.
Farmed, it's vacant. Simmons Farm, adjacent to this property.
Any comments from the audience? Any questions for the staff? Anything more from the commission? Could I possibly hear a motion then from one of the members?
I'll make a motion that the Tuscany 2 revised preliminary plan be approved in accordance to staff's memo dated November 30th, 2022, including the 18 conditions set forth in that memo.
One second.
We have a motion and seconded. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item E, recommendation from the Planning Commission. Understands the ward consolidation, 108 and 110 Sycamore Drive.
Robert and Sharon Ward, two adjoining properties at 108, that's the one outlined in blue there, and then they own 110 Sycamore Drive where they built a new house. The ward consolidation plan simply combines those two properties into one lot, which would be 6.82 acre. It'll be a 6.82 acre property. The purpose of this is they want to knock the majority of that existing house down on 108 Sycamore and build a greenhouse. So that's the purpose. They're going to combine it, make it one, and convert that old house or portions of that old house into a greenhouse. You can't have an accessory structure on a lot without a primary structure, so they have to combine.
Okay.
Okay.
So staff's recommending approval, subject to those 5 conditions in my memo dated November 30, 2022.
Well, this is refreshing. Obviously, this is a good one.
When did the construction on that house begin? Because I walk past there every single day, and it was years.
It took, I'm going to say at least 3+ years
Yeah,
to build.
and it's beautiful.
It's finally done.
And I guess
Now
one,
they have another project they want.
Any audience comments regarding this? Good to me, I don't know.
Yep.
Anything to add?
Yeah,
I don't have
no.
any questions. You, Ted?
No.
the solar panels are working fine?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve that the planning commission recommendation, lot consolidation plan, ward plan of lots, dated November, as detailed in the planning staff memo dated November 30th, 2022, be approved, subject to the 5 conditions therein.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. F, Planning Commission approval. Westbury revised preliminary plan, along with a Planning Commission recommendation for Phase 1 of the final plan on Churchill Road.
Yeah. Planning Commission's doing 3 things here on this Westbury neighborhood. One, looking at the revised preliminary plan and approving that if it's meets your requirements. And 2, reviewing the final plan for a recommendation to council along with a modification to a cul-de-sac a temporary cul-de-sac at the end of Barnett. So, a little tricky. Environmentally Sound Enterprises, the owner and developer of the Westbury plan, is requesting township approval to revise the master plan, and I'll focus on that for now. The Planning Commission will recall this original plan, master plan, was approved by Planning Commission back in March 14, 2019. Planning Commission recommended the final plan be approved by council on June 13, 2019, and then council approved the Westbury final plan at their December 16, 2019 meeting. So that was for the entire plan, and they were at that time going to develop it all in one phase. So now tonight, in that red line that you can see there, kind of delineates Phase 1 from Phase 2. The changes that are being proposed by Environmentally Sound are fairly simple. On Westbury Drive, I don't know if you could point to it, they're adding lot 70 on Westbury Drive, and that's the main entrance drive as it comes in off of Churchill. I say in my report that they're adding lot 71. They're not really adding. Lot 71 was an existing property that they purchased, and that is now functioning as their staging area. They like to preserve that as a lot in the future. There's interest from possibly adjoining property owners that might want to buy it and combine it with their property. They moved the cluster mailbox from Barnett Street down to closer to the entrance, which we think is better. They have moved the top lot from the big open space area on Barnett and brought it in to be closer into the neighborhood, right there on an open space parcel on the Summerfield Down Circle. It's a fairly large level area. That'll be a nice area for a little playground, and that's what they're proposing there. And then they want to split the plan. Phase 1 will be 39 lots. And if we could and they did a good job by picking their phase line, so there's no problem with delivering services and turning around vehicles, garbage, etc., snow removal. So 39 lots in Phase 1, and those improvements, storm sewers, sanitary sewers, paving, grouting of parts of the mines have all been done, and they're close to getting ready to record Phase 1. So those are the major changes, the actually only changes in the master plan. So this Westbury plan is on a 25.46 acre property. It's 70 lots, I say 71 in my report, so that's approximately 2.7 lots per acre, and they're showing 6.37 acres of open space. The master plan does not change any of the layouts of the street. Everything stays the same that was originally approved back in 2019. So staff's recommending we reapprove, planning commission reapprove the preliminary plan. Step 2, the modification. You see the temporary cul-de-sac, if you could point to it at the end of Barnett there. Originally that was shown as a 40-foot radius, 80-foot diameter cul-de-sac. You know, on paper it worked, but in the field there was just not enough room to make it township spec. It is close. It's a 30-foot radius, 30-foot radius, 60-foot diameter. We have had public works vehicles down there. It works. It turns around the snow plows. It functions for garbage trucks. So staff's recommending we grant them a modification to that section of our subdivision ordinance, which is section 385-37H4, which requires temporary cul-de-sacs to be built to permanent cul-de-sac specs, 40-foot radius, 80-foot diameter. We've had our township engineer, Mark Zamitis, look at it too. He's on board. It works for our needs, so there's not a big problem with it being less than township spec. So that's the modification. And staff's recommending that the final plan, the first 39 lots in phase 1 of Westbury be approved. And the approval of the modification and the final plan would be subject to those 6 conditions listed in my memo dated December 2, 2022. So when we're doing this tonight, we can make a motion on the master plan first. Then second motion would be the modification, and then the third motion would be the final plan.
But the final plan's not being proposed tonight,
Yes,
or it is?
yes. It's all 3.
You mean the phase
Phase
1
one.
and phase 2?
Just
Or
phase
just-
1.
Okay,
Just phase one.
okay, I got you.
And Ann Murphy with Environmental Sound is here tonight if there's questions that I can't answer.
Ed, I have a question on that Summer Down Circle that you highlighted. What was the reason for highlighting that? I didn't.
Tot lot, it'll be built there as opposed to another location off further away from the main part.
Oh, so the configuration of that lot and that open space is all the
Hasn't changed.
same shape and everything. They're just moving the playground to there, which was not previously there.
Correct.
Okay, all right. I missed that. So. And the other question I have on the cul-de-sac, on the temporary cul-de-sac, I see a dimension of 30 feet radius from the center line or outward. What's the dimension to the left going to the straightaway from that?
It'd be 30 plus
24?
From that
20.
to the left, what, is that another 30?
That'd be another 20.
So how's that a 60-foot circle?
Well, it has a 30-foot radius on that right side, which allows a vehicle to go in, do the maneuvering, and be able to head back out.
Is that road exist now? Is that as a paved road?
It's paved. It was paved as part of Phase 1 public improvements by the developer. There are 3 lots back. I don't know if we can go to the area.
So there's houses back there. There's
There are
existing
houses
houses
back
back
I
there.
was going to ask
Yeah.
the purpose.
Right.
3 existing homes back there that need to be able to get in and out.
Has the fire department weighed in on this? I mean, normally they don't like to back up as far as Barnett would require them to back up.
Fire department has not weighed in, but this is a much better situation there today as opposed to how it was before. There was no turnaround. It was a dirt road, and now it's like a different world back there that's paved, and you have a place to turn around.
And the paved is 18 foot, typical width paved?
Well, in Westbury, they've got the smaller size streets. That was before we made our
Yeah.
change. So it's an 18-foot wide
Paved.
carpway
Oh,
with 1-foot wedge curves on each side.
18 plus
9-foot lanes, 1-foot wedge curve.
20 feet to,
And what's the topography, if you extend that cul-de-sac? I see to the right of that where that is pretty steep, looks like those lines are pretty close together.
go back to
About
the master.
going for, you know.
The other, the topography to the right is a
Challenge.
Yeah.
drop. It drops way off, down.
Or down, yeah.
The property to the left is private property owned by one of those 3 property owners in the back.
No, I mean straight, like up the page.
You also
Fairly
get-
level. Fairly level.
So that you could continue that fairly easily, is my.
Yeah, that, it's a temporary cul-de-sac because that right-of-way goes all the way to that adjoining, that someday there could be a future road through there.
Okay. And what's the grade of that? Do we know what the grade of that road is?
Level,
Okay.
less than 5%.
Okay, so that's all cool.
Is everyone clear?
Yeah, I just, you mentioned that the engineer, the
Township engineer.
township engineer came in and looked at it, and you know, like you indicated, our temporary cul-de-sacs, they're typically constructed at permanent cul-de-sac.
Correct.
So are we saying that, by saying that it doesn't work out there for that size cul-de-sac, the 40-foot radius, that it's not going to work out to construct a permanent cul-de-sac there
Period.
at all?
Correct.
Okay.
There's just not enough room for a standard 2-spec cul-de-sac in that location.
And is that going to be part of phase 1 or phase?
Phase 1.
Phase, because I was saying the line ends right there, but for your
But actually,
It goes up.
we should adjust that line.
it goes up. It goes up.
Up
there.
Phase
and
1 is
around.
already,
Okay, that was going to be.
it's already built.
It really would do this.
If I may say something,
Yeah,
there's
you
one.
gotta-
And you gotta come up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we need to have somebody else speak other than
Or the
us.
folks on TV.
And go ahead, there might be a paper up there to sign your name into and let us know who you are.
Ann Murphy. I'm the developer of the Westbury plan. The reason that red line is shown the way it was is there's no building lots any further up. So the building lot at the corner of Westbury and Barnett, those lots, that's the extent. So that's why the phase line shows there, rather than going up to the cul-de-sac. That the remainder of that road and that temporary cul-de-sac are along a common, the green space area, which is a hillside that comes down onto Barnett. And rather than cut that back and disturb the existing homeowners at the end of Barnett, we've left Barnett pretty much intact as far as the land goes, just improving the road and what we had to cut in to create the road. So that's why the phase is like it is.
Thanks.
And just to be clear, there's been no analysis, obviously the fire department will look at, but there's been no analysis by the applicant's engineer or by our engineer whether or not a fire truck can turn around that. I understand it's a better condition than it was yesterday, so to speak, but there's no analysis to that.
Well, what was up there before was literally a dirt pathway.
And
I'm sorry.
Probably should have stayed.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with Barnett.
I'm familiar, I understand it's better than it was.
Well, what it was a dirt path. I mean, a
Understood.
bicycle path
I know.
that they drove on. So the width across the lane there, it's not shown on this drawing, but I do believe I gave that to you, the entire width, if you can look on one of your old
see.
drawings. Because I believe vertically it's just about 80 foot, and horizontally I thought it was, I can't remember if it was 60 or 70 foot across. But everything turns around in there. I mean, I don't know how anybody got back there before. We had
There's certainly-
to take a 4-wheel, but when we first looked at the property. so is the dirt path. So the radius, the big vehicles can get around. And the two houses that are back there, there's two homes that are back there.
When you say big vehicles, we're talking snow
The
plows,
trucks, the
garbage.
snow plow.
We're not sure about fire.
I would think that a fire truck wouldn't have any problem with it either, because there's plenty of room to maneuver back in there. We created a parking lot for one of the homeowners, so they didn't have to park in the cul-de-sac. So there shouldn't be any issue for them to move around in there at all.
I don't see a problem with the fire trucks. I will have them go look at it, but I don't see it being a problem for them. I think that they'd be able to maneuver back there fine.
Okay, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I'm just making sure that if we're approving a temporary cul-de-sac that's less than our standards, that it meet the intent to provide safety and access. It's one thing to not be able to plow roads. That's also a bit of a safety thing, but I'm just making sure that a fire truck can get back there without backing up as far as they do, given that's a risk to our firefighters. So.
Well, and just to point out to you, actually, also, there's now a fire hydrant at that intersection where there wasn't one before, at Westbury and Barnett.
I completely understand and agree and appreciate the betterment of the situation that was there before. I don't know that this board or Peters Township approved the previous situation that was there. There was probably legacy design and construction. So I'm just looking out for this board, whether or not we can approve something like that.
I'll open up to anybody else in the audience that has any questions, concerns, or comments. So hearing none, we're going to have maybe three parts of this. Let's start with
Dave,
the
one
first
second, I have one more question here.
Along that Barnett Street, is that open area, that's to remain open space? The lot B-1?
Correct.
That's like owned by HOA or whatever?
Correct. All the open space will be HOA owned. The township will maintain the stormwater management facility. So there's two. And that has not changed from 2019.
Would it be reasonable to request that our fire department just confirm they can,
You can, yeah.
affirm they can?
I thought you said they already did a test drive up.
Public Works,
Oh,
snow,
okay.
garbage is functioning. I'll have them go check it.
Well, there's existing homes up there, right? That road services the existing homes around.
Three.
There's 3 homes up there.
Oh, beyond the end of that
Right at the
cul-de-sac?
cul-de-sac.
Yes. You see them there?
Ah, okay. That's not on this plan, that's why I was
They've
saying.
been there
All right,
for
sorry, my bad.
many, many years.
Now I got it. Thank you.
So I think if the fire department can affirm that they can actively service those units, then I think that's a reasonable condition. I would be completely fine with this.
Yeah, that makes a difference.
So that, I'm going to make that condition 6. 7.
So,
So preliminary plan is all planning commission. You're
Yep.
approving the revised preliminary plan, splits it into 2 phases, and adds lot 70, moves the top lot, and
and you want 3 motions.
I think it's clean that way.
Very good. I'd like to make a motion that the planning commission approve the Westbury revised preliminary plan, subject to staff's memo of December 2nd, 2022, and the associated 7 conditions as applicable to that recommendation.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'd like to make a motion the planning commission recommend approval of the cul-de-sac modification, for the temporary cul-de-sac modification as outlined in staff's December 2nd memo, including those 7
Yep.
criteria, including that fire department affirm they can actively service the existing homes around the temporary cul-de-sac.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All approved.
I'd like to make I'd like to make a motion that the Planning Commission recommend approval for the Westbury Phase 1 final plan as identified in staff's memo of December 2nd, 2022, and those 7 conditions as they apply.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is passed. Seeing we have no more new business to discuss, is there anything that the staff or the commissioners want to bring up?
I have nothing.
Hearing no more business, close the meeting.